One Piece Manga Chapter 1139 titled Mountain Eater. In this chapter, Luffy meets the mysterious man who was near the Ouest Castle's entrance, and we finally discover who he really is. We also uncover the location of the key to Loki's chains and find out where it's hidden inside the castle's throne room. So sit back, relax, and watch right to the end of the video as all of that is revealed. The cover page of the chapter is the 25th volume of the limited cover story, Oni Child Yamato and the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage. In the previous volume of the limited cover story, Who's Who and his subordinates were enjoying themselves at the heart of their hidden base. Who's Who was laughing loudly, soaking in the traditional music as a lady served drinks to him and his men. This volume continues with Who's Who unsheathing his sword. A sinister grin creeps across his face as he glares at two mysterious rebels lying on the ground. The rebels, wearing two horned Viking hats, cast dark silhouettes. Behind Who's Who, his subordinates raise their arms, fist pumping as they cheer with wild energy. But seeing those two horned Viking-shaped hats, could these rebels actually be Ulti in page 1? The chapter begins where we left off in chapter 1138. After talking with Bogey and his friends about the invader who looks like Shanks, Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and Road continue searching the castle for the key. But with how massive the place is, Zoro's patience is running thin. At this rate, they'll still be searching by sundown. Road agrees. Bogey and his friends don't know anything about the key, and honestly, Road doubts asking them would help. He figures the only ones who might have a clue are a few of the Greybeards, like Elder Jarul. Hearing Jarul's name, Luffy remembers him as the old man with a sword stuck in his helmet. He wonders if Jarul would tell him about the key if they asked. But Road doesn't think so. Trying to free Loki is already a serious crime. There's no way Jarul would help them. Zoro cuts in, reminding everyone that they haven't decided if they're going to free Loki yet. Luffy grins, teasing Zoro for still not being on board with his idea. Out of nowhere, Nami calls them over, her jaw dropping at something she found. Luffy rushes to her side. Road gulps. Even he's at a loss for words. Before them is a grand red carpet and a mark of nobility. Road quickly realizes what this place is. Could it be the throne room? He instinctively bows out of respect, but before he can complete the gesture, he freezes in shock. The room is completely wrecked. Skulls and bones litter the ground. The once grand red carpet is tattered and faded. Giant branches snake up the walls, stone pillars are split, and the king's throne itself is covered in cracks. Behind it, enormous claw marks are slashed deep into the walls. But in the center of it all lies a familiar magic circle. Luffy notices something odd. The rubble looks fresh, like the destruction just happened. Zoro and Nami also spot a hole in the ceiling. Road confirms this is the throne room, but even he has no clue what the magic circle means. These claw marks definitely raise some questions. In chapter 1137, we found out that the castle was wrecked during Loki and King Harold's battle. But with Luffy pointing out that the damage looks fresh, could Shamrock and Cerberus be behind it? To get a better look, Road lifts Luffy, Zoro, and Nami onto his palm. With just one glance, Nami recognizes the mark. It's a magic circle. She's seen it in books before. She explains that magic circles are used in rituals to summon demons in some countries. Luffy's voice rises with excitement as he wonders how the magic circle works. But Nami doesn't know either. Road shivers in fear. Looking at it feels creepy. He can't even imagine what the magic circle is doing in the throne room. Upon close look, Luffy feels like it's similar to something he saw recently. If we look back at chapter 1109, we saw the magic circles appear when Saint Saturn summoned the other Gorosei. Luffy was there when they showed up, but it makes sense that he doesn't fully remember the markings. He was too focused on the Gorosei themselves. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice calls out to Luffy. Everyone stiffens in shock. They glance around, searching for the source, but there's no one in sight. Road's voice shakes as he asks who's speaking. His mind races with the worst possibilities, hoping it's not a demon, a vengeful spirit, or something even worse. With Luffy, Zoro, and Nami still in his palm, Road bolts out the throne room, convinced a demon has been summoned, and the castle is cursed. The voice responds. It has been waiting to meet Luffy for a long time. Nami tries to calm Road down, but it's no use. He just wants to get out before they all get possessed. But just as the voice tells them to wait, a massive axe suddenly flies toward Road. In the next moment, an axe suddenly crashes into the wall, barely missing Road. His eyes pop in shock, and as he flinches, he accidentally lets go of Luffy, Zoro, and Nami. The three maneuver through the air as they fall. Nami screams as gravity pulls her down. But Zoro lands safely and catches her. Luffy stretches his arm to help slow down her descent. But then, Luffy notices something. His expression shifts as he urges everyone to look ahead. Near the throne, someone is sitting. Road quickly apologizes for the accident before realizing where the voice had come from. Looking at the throne, he finally sees the true source of the voice. Addressing the figure politely, he calls him Sir Ya and asks why he's in the throne room. It's interesting to see Road showing such politeness toward Ya, who is clearly human. If we look back at chapter 1129 of the manga, Road was complaining because he disagreed with Hadrian's decision to have the new giant warrior pirates join the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. It's obvious that Road sees humans as inferior, yet he seems to show respect toward Ya. The man, Ya, breaks into an amused smile. It turns out he's an ex-pirate and a human resident of Elbaf. With his arms crossed, he casually answers Road's question. Ya explains that he sensed a strange surge of haki coming from the throne room earlier. He rushed in to investigate it, but unfortunately missed whatever caused it. Still, he says he's glad to have found them instead. Finally, the mystery is solved. The identity of the shadowy figure is revealed. Ya's Wano-style hat, long spiky hair, and striped cape closely resemble the man spotted near the castle's entrance back in chapter 1138. His Hawaiian-inspired outfit and round black sunglasses also seem oddly familiar. With it, it's all but confirmed. Ya was the same shadowy figure seen walking through Elbaf's forest back in chapter 1132. Ya keeps his grin as he turns to Luffy, saying he's heard the rumors about him, especially his victory over Kaido. It's been ages since Ya last visited Wano, and hearing about Luffy's exploits makes him want to go back there again. However, Luffy has no clue who Ya is. Road quickly steps in, introducing Ya and revealing that he's Ripley's partner. Luffy flashes a big grin, surprised that Ya is Colin's father. He doesn't call him by name though. In true Luffy fashion, he just calls him Big Pipsqueak. Ya bursts into laughter. The nickname is hilarious, but it's not wrong. Ya then asks if they've already met Colin and Ripley. He starts talking about Colin's mixed heritage, explaining that his giant blood is a lot stronger than his human DNA. Since the day he was born, Colin has always been too big for him to carry. Ya then casually reveals the ages of his son and wife. Colin is 20, and Ripley is 80. She's even older than he is. For Ya, marrying a giant doesn't make sense. After all, he's the only one getting old. Nami's mouth falls open. She can't believe a guy like Ya exists. Finally, Ya jumps down from his seat, landing in front of Nami and the others. Ya just grins. For him, it's not weird at all. Mixed race people have been around throughout history, and he lists a few examples. Buccaneers, Dosendatas, Longlegs, Longnecks, and Wotans. While hybrids like them are rare and often face struggles, there have always been people open to marrying outside their race. The mention of these tribes really brings something to mind. In the 17th volume of the limited cover story, the saga of the self-proclaimed Straw Hat Fleet, Idio and his crew find themselves caught in a fierce battle between two warring factions, and they end up defeating both sides. Then, in the next volume, in chapter 884, they discover that these factions are actually the Longleg and Longarm tribes, and they've stumbled right into their 1,000-year-old conflict. Zoro, intrigued, finally cuts into the conversation. Ya seems to know a lot about this subject. So, who is he, really? Ya's smile stretches wider as he proudly introduces himself as the Missionary of Love. Luffy can't help but laugh. This guy reminds him way too much of Sanji. Luffy bets that when Sanji gets old, he's gonna end up just like Ya. But there's no more time to waste. Luffy gets straight to the point and asks Ya if he knows where the key to Loki's chains is. Road immediately freaks out and stops Luffy. He warns him not to just say things like that out loud. Besides, why would Ya even know about it? Luffy panics, waving his hands frantically and telling Ya to forget what he just said. But it's too late. Ya already heard him loud and clear. His voice grows louder, his grin widening. Now that he knows Luffy and his crew are here to stir up trouble, he's hyped. This is getting interesting, and he loves it. Nami immediately tries to do damage control, begging Ya to keep quiet about what he hears. But no matter how much she pleads, he has no intention of staying silent. To him, rumors exist to be spread. Then, Ya throws out a question. Does Luffy really understand who Loki is? And more importantly, if things go south, what's he going to do? Luffy's face turns serious. Without hesitation, he declares that if Loki tries anything shady, he'll beat him to a pulp and lock him back up. Ya lets out a low chuckle before dropping another bombshell. The one who originally locked Loki up was none other than Shanks. Until that moment, no one had been able to stop him. He warns Luffy about Loki's overwhelming power. If he breaks loose, there's no avoiding massive casualties. But before Ya can even finish, Luffy and Zoro have already turned their backs on him. Zoro grumbles that this is a waste of time, and Luffy nods in agreement. The key isn't going to find itself, and listening to Ya's warnings just feels like a distraction. Ya yells after them to wait. Even Nami tries to knock some sense into them, urging them to take Ya's words more seriously. But it's pointless. Road sighs and apologizes to Ya on their behalf. For a moment, Ya is speechless. Then a grin spreads across his face as an old memory resurfaces. Back in his younger days, something just like this used to happen with his crewmates. In his mind, a dark silhouette shaped like Roger's face yells at him, complaining about all his warnings. Ya argues back, calling Roger a dumbass and insisting that he's just pointing out the risks. But Roger disagrees. If Yaw really wanted to stop him, he should just try using brute force instead. The scene shifts back to the throne room. As they stand atop the magic circle, Yaw suddenly orders Road to give the throne a push. Road wonders why. The scene shifts to the western village. As the feast rages on, the giants are chatting with Usopp and the rest of the crew who stayed behind. Oimo leans in, asking if they know that besides Roger, there are 2 other monstrous fighters on the Pirate King's crew. Usopp's jaw drops. 2 more? He thought Rayleigh was the only one. Oimo grins and continues. He recalls a time when Roger was injured or sick and needed treatment. To recover, he was taken to a hospital deep in the mountains, accompanied by a certain man. As the story gets more intense, Oimo points directly at Usopp, his grin widening with excitement. Enemy pirates soon surrounded the hospital, hoping to capture Roger and his crewmate. But that one man, armed with nothing but his 2 axes, fought off hundreds of enemies all by himself. And that's not even the craziest part. Oimo reveals that by the time the battle was over, not a single tree was left standing. The entire mountain had been stripped bare. Usopp can't wrap his head around it. Just a guy with 2 axes, and he's capable of next-level deforestation. Sanji and Brook are also listening. Jinbei, on the other hand, has already heard of it, and thought it was a very famous tale. Oimo continues. He says that the tale is how the man got the name Mountain Eater. He rivaled the Vice Captain Silver's Rayleigh, and was known as the left hand of the Pirate King. Before Oimo can reveal the man's name, the scene shifts back to the Ouest Castle. After Road pushes the throne, they stumble into a hidden room. Thinking it was a treasure chamber, Nami couldn't help but feel excited. She even blurts out that she loves Yaw. As Road descends the stairs with Nami, Zoro, Luffy, and Yaw perched in his palm, Nami's excitement only grows. She can't stop fantasizing about the treasure that might be waiting for them. Road, on the other hand, is curious. How does Yaw even know about this hidden place? Yaw waves him off, calling it nothing more than a love for exploration. Suddenly, Luffy yells, his voice echoing through the chamber. Ah! Nami, still lost in her own world, her eyes sparkling with excitement. After all, right in front of them is the castle's treasure room. Like the rest of the castle, the treasure room is in ruins. Giant tree roots crawl along the cracked walls, with holes and moss covering every surface. Scattered across the floor are old treasure chests. Most of them are already looted, some even destroyed. But at the center of the room, resting atop a stone pillar, is a massive key. Nami's excitement instantly turns to fury. The sight of the empty chests fuels her disappointment. She whirls on Yaw, calling him a liar, but Yaw just throws his head back and laughs. He explains that this was a treasure chamber. Nami can't blame him for the place being robbed. It's an abandoned castle after all. Thieves were bound to find their way in sooner or later. Yaw's smile grows wider as he spots the key. He jumps from Road's hand and lands just beside the key, which is slightly taller than him. For Yaw, this key is a prize not even the thieves were willing to take. Luffy beams with delight. Finally, he found the key he was looking for. But something about Yaw's behavior is off. He removes his hat, his tone turning serious. He asks Luffy one last time if he really does want this key. Seeing it left here alone, he knows that even the treasure thieves don't want to free Loki. A look of confusion crossed Luffy's face. He lets out a puzzled noise, trying to piece together what's going on. The scene briefly shifts to the western village. Usopp's voice erupts in disbelief. He's struggling to process what Oimo and Kashi just said. The two reveal that the man known as Mountain Eater has been living in Elbaf for over 20 years now. They introduce him as a living legend who went shoulder to shoulder with Roger and Rayleigh, the Pirate King's left hand, Scooper Gabon. The scene shifts back to the treasure room. Yaw, or rather Gabon, reveals his true intentions. His smirk sharpens as he grips the massive key in both hands. If Luffy wants it, he'll have to get past him first. After years and chapters of mystery, we finally get the reveal we've been waiting for. It now makes perfect sense why the mysterious figure was seen talking and drinking with Cronus back in chapter 631. And now we finally know it's Scooper Gabon. With Gold D Roger representing gold and Silver's Rayleigh symbolizing silver, it only fits that Gabon, whose name hints at copper, would be the Pirate King's left hand. This also creates an interesting parallel between the Roger Pirates and the Straw Hat crew. Luffy parallels Roger, Rayleigh mirrors Zoro, and now Gabon draws comparison to Sanji. Even Luffy hinted at this earlier, noting how Gabon's playful antics as a missionary of love really resembles Sanji's personality. And with all this in mind, it seems likely that the silhouette we saw on the final page of chapter 1124, waiting for the Straw Hat Pirates, might just be Gabon too. There's so much to talk about and discuss, so let's continue this in the comment section down below. As always, press like if you enjoyed the video, and if you don't want to miss out on future One Piece chapters like this one, definitely subscribe and hit that bell icon. If you missed any old chapters, just click on the videos on the screen to catch up. There will be a break this week, so I'll see you in the next video. Till then, thank you for watching, and have a great day, Nakama.